Hello, P3ers. Welcome to a new school year. Got a new class, and as I said in class just today, these videos are going to be an important part of our time together. You're going to get assignments through them. You're going to get information. Right now, you're going to get some notes. And so it becomes a kind of a video notebook for you as well. They can always refer back to. So, and it will allow us, because I'm giving you notes through the video, to get more done in the classroom without me lecturing. So it's going to serve a real purpose, and this is the first one. So welcome, obviously, to the video, much like I welcomed you in class today. Also, welcome to anybody who's a former P3er who has bumbled their way onto the video, or maybe you followed it. That's fantastic. Or anybody else who happened to show up attracted to the idea of philosophy. I hope you enjoy what you watch and you get a little something out of it. Now, in terms of the class, yep, there it is, the dragon mug. You're going to see a lot of the dragon mug this year. All right, in terms of the class, I mentioned the idea that philosophy engages in something called the long conversation. And it's a great metaphor for a reality that people have been discussing big philosophic ideas for thousands of years. As far back as you go into history, 4,000 years, let's say, you are now being invited to participate in a 4,000-year-long conversation about various topics of great importance to the human condition. A lot of times people think they stand alone or their thoughts are just very isolated. That's just not the case. You are, in fact, part of a long stream of thinking and ideas, and you will find allies and you're going to find opponents to your way of thinking in that long conversation. But that's the beauty of it, don't you see? We are not standing alone in our own times. You actually do have an inheritance of thought and idea. And because of the times we live in, you can gather those thoughts and ideas from around the globe, various cultures, various time periods, and evaluate them in the comfort of a classroom. I think that's a wonderful thing, that you get to feel like you're part of this 4,000-year inheritance of ideas. Now, in that long conversation, 4 problems that I focus on in class. The first of those problems, it's called, not we call it, everyone calls it in philosophy, the problem of knowledge. Now, that might sound like, what's the problem with knowledge? You learn something, you have knowledge. Okay, that's a very fundamental form of knowledge. But the problem of knowledge also is, how can we trust what we know? What happens when what we know is proven false? What are the styles of gaining knowledge? I mean, there's scientific knowledge. No, I can learn about photosynthesis. Okay, now I have knowledge, and that's probably not going to change. But that knowledge doesn't help me deal with the pain of the death of a loved one. What knowledge helps me with that? Is there a form of knowledge that helps me with that? Maybe the best form of knowledge for that is the knowledge of someone who's been through it. Experience counts. And so then there's the experience of life that gives us knowledge. It's not scientific knowledge, but it's definitely knowledge. I've been through this before. Let me help you. Maybe there's knowledge to that type of experience. I don't know if you know the movie Good Will Hunting, but this is P3, philosophy, psychology, and pop culture. And in that movie, a therapist, played by Robin Williams, has a 20-year-old client, played by Matt Damon, who is obnoxious, rude, and uses tremendous book knowledge to kind of crush everyone's arguments with him and make himself feel a bit superior and safe from other people's points of view. And Robin Williams' character breaks him down, gives him a bit of a verbal beating, very calmly, but a verbal beatdown, and it's all about the value of experience. We'll probably watch this clip in class someday if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, you know the famous bench scene in Good Will Hunting. It's an example of 2 forms of knowledge colliding with each other. All right, so there's just a brief introduction to the problem of knowledge. Oh, sorry, one more piece of knowledge for you there, the problem of knowledge. Have you ever had the experience of something happening and you go, I knew that was going to happen? Are you clairvoyant? Can you see the future? How did you know that was going to happen? What is that a form of knowledge? And if it is, how does it fit within the problem of knowledge? Just another example for you. All right. Next one is going to sound a bit self-explanatory. The problem of conduct. How should we conduct ourselves? It'll come up the most when we do our moral philosophy unit. And obviously, if you're watching any movie, reading a book, streaming service, whatever the case may be, if characters aren't put in positions to make tough decisions on how to conduct themselves, you got a pretty boring story going on there. So the problem of conduct shows up everywhere. So if it doesn't, like I said, you got a boring show that you're dealing with. But it's important to know it doesn't have to be huge, Star Wars, galactic themes. There's a great movie called Beautiful Boy. A father with a son who's addicted to drugs. How does the father conduct himself towards a son who's also an addict? No, there's a way we would like, I suppose, fathers to treat their sons, but don't those rules change when the son is also an addict? Addicts lie, manipulate, deceive, all in an attempt to feed their addiction. So if you're a father who loves his son, but also knows his son is an addict, what are the rules of conduct there? How ought I conduct myself? So there's a really down-to-earth movie that really can be utilized to show the problem of conduct and how we need to conduct ourselves in a given situation. So that's 2 of the 4 problems. Third one is going to be the problem of governance. What types of governments are proper for a certain kind of person? Now, this is not about, obviously we're talking civics and laws, but it really isn't so much about that. Just follow along now. It's actually, in a lot of ways, about human nature. If a human being, we decide because of the human nature, their human nature is A, then the government that we create ought to be a government that supports and enhances A as a form of human nature. But if human nature is in fact D, and we set up a government to enhance someone who we envision as having human nature A, but we're wrong, what happens there? Things fall apart, conflict, madness unfolds. So before you even have a theory of governance, you need to have human nature as a theory as well. I don't know how many of you out there are fans of The Walking Dead. That's right, The Walking Dead. But if you know The Walking Dead, and if you don't know, I'll explain it to you a little bit right now. You're in that zombie apocalypse land. But the fascinating thing about The Walking Dead is you have every season different little communities that are formed that the main characters tend to bump into. And every community clearly has a particular view or communicates a view of human nature, what it is, and therefore how we act as a ruler. Whether it's Negan, whether it's the governor, whether it's Ezekiel with the kingdom, I'm drawing a blank. The railroad tracks that led into the little town where the cannibals lived. I can't remember the name of it. Tell you what, first bonus question of the year. I'm not going to look it up. If you can tell me in your homework assignment the name of the cannibal's home in the Walking Dead, there you go. We'll get there, a little mini 2 bonus point question. Drawing a blank on that one. All right. But point is not that I'm drawing a blank. Point is all these communities do act a certain way. So we can watch that show and go, based on those communities and the way they act, what does this tell us, or how does it communicate a particular vision of human nature? So human nature and governance run hand in hand. And by the way, when I say governance, I know it sounds very political, obviously, because it is, but you can also make that argument that someone who runs a school has a vision of governance. They're the leader of a community, and they have a view of human nature that they probably on some level follow to help them make their decisions. So while we're saying governance, it can be smaller than a country. I would say the problem of governance can almost be broken down into the problem of leadership. That's not often used, but for our purposes, I think that works pretty well, and it makes it something that could fit maybe a little bit cleaner into our class and your world a little bit. All right. And the final problem is the problem of salvation. Now, I know that the word salvation has a certain religious connotation to it. And that's not exactly what we're talking about here. The problem of salvation in philosophy is, how do I make my life worth living? Life is going to have suffering and pain and anxiety. You're not escaping that. The question is, how do I face those threats to my psyche and still enjoy life? How do I make my life worth living in the face of the realities of life? Philosophy addresses that problem, and it's called the problem of salvation. In essence, how do I save my own life? In a very straightforward, kind of dramatic sense of the word, you think about the character Batman. Most people know Batman's origin, saw his parents killed before him, and he ends up handling that, saving his own life from the fear and the pain of his parents' death by becoming Batman, someone who's going to do everything in his vast array of power and knowledge to prevent other people from feeling that type of pain. So that's how Batman, in essence, Bruce Wayne, tried to save his own life. So that's just a very quick example of salvation in a kind of a straightforward comic book type of manner. But obviously the idea of how do we face anxiety, pain, and nervousness takes place in all types of pop culture references as well. And by the way, don't leave songs out of this. There was a song made by a woman named Tracy Chapman, Fast Car, which was covered not too long ago, I think by a country western singer. And on some level, the song Fast Car is about the problem of salvation. If you know the song, you're familiar with the idea that in the song, Tracy Chapman, the songwriter woman, is very disappointed with the way her life is going, particularly because her husband is neglectful of her kids. Very much the same type of downtrodden individual that her father was, which is also communicated in the song. So the character in the song has to make a decision: stay or leave. Leave tonight or we can live and die this way. So she's trying to figure out on some level in the song Fast Car, how do I save my life from the misery that surrounds me? So the problem of salvation, once again, can show up in songs as well. But songs can have tremendous stories in them in a short period of time. And therefore, the 4 problems of philosophy can also show up in songs. So, I just gave to you your list, the 4 problems of philosophy as they're communicated in that long conversation. Your assignment tonight, don't spend too much time thinking about it. Kind of let it just kind of flow a little bit and see what you come up with. But you have the problem of governance, the problem of knowledge, the problem of conduct, the problem of salvation. Write down, come up with one example from your own pop culture experience. Movies, songs, books, video games have pretty complex stories. Maybe a video game has has a good example of the problem of conduct. So whatever it is that you consume as part of your pop culture life, one example for each of the 4 problems of philosophy. This video is also linked to our Google Classroom. So you can go to the Google Classroom, whip up a Google Doc, send it my way, and we will start class tomorrow with your lists. Oh, and don't forget the bonus question. I'm not going to tell you what the bonus question was, because I said don't forget it. So you're supposed to remember it. So you got the bonus question that you may or may not remember what the hell it is. And if you don't, tough break. If you do, put the answer down and you get 2 bonus points if you get it right. And I'll know if you get it right because I'm going to go look up the answer when I'm done with this video. So don't try to fool me, all right? I'm not a complete idiot. All right. So you have your assignment. First video is done. This is a very important video too, by the way, because those 4 problems are going to be with us for the rest of the school year. So this is definitely part of your video notes that you're going to want to keep in the back of your mind. Maybe we can help each other organize my Google Classroom to make these videos have their own home on it. Anyway, that's it for today. I will see you in class tomorrow, and to all the people out there who perhaps joined just along the way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you come back to visit P3 and me. Take care, everybody.